Hello and welcome to the Property Roundup here on iProperty Radio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on activity on the ground and to learn about new trends emerging. This show is sponsored by daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Emma Gill and Claire Glynn of property partners Gill and Glynn. And would it be fair to call you maybe the newest office in Ireland, the newest property brand in Ireland?
I suppose that's true, yes.
Use partnership anyways.
Very good. So let's talk about this. So, as I've introduced you both as property partners, Gill and Glynn, but this is a coming together of two well-known brands. So you might just talk to us a little bit. So Emma, you might start there and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, so I set up business there in 2009 initially, in the depths of depression, the depths of recession, should I say. But I came back from Australia and just decided I had left. I was actually working for Sherry Fitzgerald before I left, and I had left to travel Australia for a year. And when I was over on the beach, I decided, no, home was Ireland, and I was coming back to set up a business. So I actually originally set up as a rental agent in 2009, which was a very busy time for rental for sure. There was probably on our books at that time 40 to 50 odd rental properties, which is the absolute opposite extreme today. So I set up the rental agent and then I quickly applied for my license. My granddad was an auctioneer. So my dad was very interested and was reading the newspapers at the time. He said that there was, about getting their license and going out and getting the license in court to that, and that I should drive on and get that now, even though I had no intention at the time of going to estate agent at that time. Quickly decided then that yes, I would once I got my license, I was set up and did the course, and I was going to follow on with sales and that. So it's obviously taken a complete turn, and we're a full sales agent, and we were very much straight afterwards, really. And then in 2016, I joined Property Partners. So I was Property Partners Emma Gill from then until now. And basically I've been working with Claire since 2000, with the last 3 years. And we actually met through work environment 10 years ago, and I was a partner with her through Connacht Properties auctions through I'm Sold. And she was my partner agent at the time. And we clicked very well. And I was disappointed actually when she went off to another place, and basically I was very much, we worked very well, and we kept very close friendship since then, and obviously kept in touch in the working environments. We were both in our own working environments, so we kept very much in touch. And she started 3 years ago, and since then it has grown extensively, as our relationship has as well. And we decided that, listen, we're better together.
I love that. It really talks not just about the testament to relationships, but kind of the longevity that actually sometimes these things you can't rush into them. Claire, you might just give us a little bit about your background.
Yes, of course. So I would have graduated from LIT in 2009 in the real estate course, and became licensed. And I suppose I would have had a sniff of the boom times in 2007 on my year's work placement. So I continued then to work in agency. Started out actually with residential sales and lettings, and did some commercial and professional services and valuations also over the years. And similarly to Emma, headed abroad as well, worked with Buxton Real Estate then in Melbourne, Australia for a year. So that was interesting and different. So came back then and started with the auction platform I Am Sold, who I believe you interviewed on your own show just a few weeks ago. And hence then relationship profession started with Emma at that stage, and it progressed from there. So thankfully, look, I certainly admire and always have Emma professionally and personally, and we just always knew we have a similar mentality, and thankfully she's very open and progressive, and look, we are where we are now thankfully because of that.
One thing we've been talking about we've really focused in the last year or so on the business of a state agency. And my focus has always been very much on the technology side. And sometimes I had to be prompted to remember the human side and the relationship side. And when I saw you both coming together, it was a real reminder of how that can be a much more powerful driver. When we talk about business model innovation, we're still getting down to that human level and the people. So prior to coming together, would you have positioned yourselves as competitors?
No, not at all, actually. We always had a good working relationship. Even when we weren't working directly together, we'd bounce things off one another. And I think, business is very tough, as you know, and, it's great to have someone that has your back, be it the days things don't go to plan, that they pick you up or give you, a steer as to, well, you could, try this, and sometimes everyone needs that. So it's what makes it work,
I think you just touched on it there, like, it's better together, as in it's more an expansion. And look, don't get me wrong, when this initially started, and I had these conversations, don't get me wrong, I quivered a little bit going, oh my God, my little name, Property Partners, I'm a Gill. I've built it over the years from 2009. And essentially I'm dropping my Emma and dropping in the Glynn. And like, don't get me wrong, those had, like, I've been questioned by a few people personally and business wise as well. There's actually a few people that has approached me, with similar aspects of, they've had an option to do that within their business, and what's my recommendation on it. And like, I suppose one day Claire said to me, don't look at it as giving up, look at it as an expansion. And it's so true. Like, we are better together. And I definitely think in this world, and and thankfully things are improving, please God. But like, it's very good from women as well to see women standing together. And like, the night we had there last week is only a glimpse of the support that we've achieved. Like, we had over 100 people in the room in Hyde. We all had an absolutely brilliant night.
Too good.
Yeah, and it's just about celebrating those moments as well. And we came now. It's, I suppose, it was nerve-wracking at the start, and now it has become, let's just celebrate it and let's embrace it. And there's just been a really wide support about it. Like, and we've got, like, I got calls. I'm still getting calls and congratulating calls, and it's lovely to see, and it's lovely for it. Look, it's brilliant that we've done it, and we're happy, delighted.
Do you know, I actually think that's a lovely way to position it, though, that you're not giving up something, that you're really expanding the potential of it. So in the spirit of expansion, what can Property Partners, Gill and Glynn, do that maybe separately and independently might have taken longer to achieve? So what are the ambitions now for kind of 2024 and 2025?
Growth is the huge thing. We're both living in different diverse areas. We both have different connections, business connections, personal connections. We both want to enhance on all of that. So we have an office. I grew up in Ballinrobe, where I started my first office, and that will be that we have an office there, and we've opened up a Headford office, which Claire has been probably fully managing from day dot. Actually, we opened that up in
April 2021. Yeah,
2021. So I suppose the growth is now, like, she's also from Galway. I'm now living in Clarenbridge. I'm married, my husband, obviously, and I'm now moved to Clarenbridge. So we cover a wide area of connections, and we have a third office now as well in Galway. So we've 3 locations, and we just tend to thrive on those locations. And we look at 2023 was a great year for us. What are we expecting for 2024? Probably if January is anything to go by, an absolute complete growth. We've numerous instructions there, and I've hit the ground running really for January, thank God.
Fantastic. And I mean, when you talk about your catchment area from Mayo coming down into Galway, just yesterday I was reading about the stats on Galway's high-end residential market, and 2023 was a really good year for high-end property in Galway. So talk to us a little bit about the marketplace, not necessarily the geography, but in terms of your sellers, who's selling, and maybe the pipeline of buyers that you have for 2024. So what's happening locally? We might start in Mayo, because we don't talk about in Ballinrobe there, because we don't talk about that part of the country often enough. So what's happening up there at the moment?
Will I take this one?
Yeah.
So basically, I suppose in Ballinrobe, there's a huge catchment area. We cover from Termacady to borders with Headford, which is the Galway Mayo border, if you like. And Ballinrobe itself, I suppose, has a population of just over 3,000 people. And at the moment, I suppose there's just 14 houses on the market, which includes areas that pulls in Shrule, Glencorrib, etc. And I know of 2 or 3 offhand that are actually already sale agreed. So the market there is performing quite well, in fairness. The pool of sellers is relatively mixed. We manage over almost 100 rental properties there, and we have found a lot of our existing landlords have decided to leave the market for various reasons. Some finding that, look, they're going to get exceptional capital values at this time, given how strong the market is performing. Others because of red tape and the fear of an alternative government and additional red tape. So I suppose we have quite a few rental properties that will be leaving, and notices unfortunately issuing to tenants, which is very difficult to do for both, in some cases, landlords and ourselves. So I suppose that's a big pool of, I suppose, a nice strand of supply that's coming through from that. And then you will have people who are kind of upsizing and downsizing and relocating, the usual, and some probates. So we've quite a few probate sales, I suppose, in that area as well. So a fairly diverse mix.
Yeah.
All of the offices benefit from that, as in, I suppose that would be one of the main benefits that we'd have for the Ballinrobe office in particular, is benefiting off the Headford and Galway office. And it's the locations has changed immensely. Like, we'd have people that were on our Galway CRM basically looking at properties now in Ballinrobe and that commuting area. And look, we all know that COVID did that too, and a lot of people work from home, but the commuting aspect of it is huge. And we would have a lot of people, we'd sell a lot of our properties via nearly the Galway office, of people realising that their budget is that bit smaller, and then going down as far as Headford and then maybe Ballinrobe. So yeah, that's, as we all know, has changed immensely in the last few years.
Yeah, the remote working is really changing the dynamics of rural Ireland. And one thing actually that I've noticed a lot is that in the commentary, sometimes there's a tendency to think that people are only moving into the rural for affordability, whereas actually I think in addition to greater affordability, there's a quality of life conversation that's happening now that maybe wasn't happening to the same extent prior to COVID. And they're really interesting dynamics for the marketplace. But just something I want to pick up on there is around landlords leaving. Every estate agent that I speak to in every part of the country, I'm always trying to find some glimmer of hope. Is there anybody new coming into the market? Because landlords leaving, yes, that's new supply for home buyers who are looking to enter, but our rental market is just becoming increasingly dysfunctional in absolutely every part of Ireland. There's just no exception to this. So are you seeing any new entrants who want to become landlords or want to extend their portfolios?
There's a very small trickle of investors out there. 2 or 3 years ago, that would have been much stronger. It's more of an exodus, unfortunately. But there are some buying in pension funds, for example, for tax benefits. But they're few and far between, but they're out there in small numbers.
Pension funds, but besides that, yeah, it is very, very little. And unfortunately, as Claire just mentioned, it's more of the exit we're getting. In particular, January, I think people have made decisions come December that they have to let go this year and have started their notice of terminations. And yeah, unfortunately, we are busy getting those notice of terminations out at the moment.
Do you're the second estate agency that we've interviewed in the first couple of weeks of the year, and you're the second to talk about that. So that this might just be the year of that, and I hope not, but unfortunately it does seem to be the case. Is there even a slight difference there in terms of the Galway market? Because you've got the student accommodation demand, you've got a stronger rental market in Galway City. Would you see any difference?
I think the landlords were holding out initially wondering what was going to come out in the budget, and quite frankly, I don't think it was enough to keep people on that. So they are leaving. Is it different in the Galway? There is more pool of people from the accommodation side. There is definitely, you'd have obviously slightly more investors on that side of things than you would down towards our Ballinrobe office. But in essence, not enough to keep the market.
You know, and that just seems to be kind of the nationwide message. In terms of new homes, again, you're covering a really large area between County Mayo and County Galway, you know, even outside of the city. Have we any reasons to be optimistic around the pipeline of new homes?
Unfortunately, has been no new developments in Ballinrobe in the last 12, 13 years, with the exception of the odd one-off home. Similarly, there was one development all right in Headford, and there was strong demands, but I think the profit margins just aren't there in some cases for builders. I was actually speaking to a client during the week, and he's assessing a site at the moment, feasibility wise. So hopefully it might come to fruition, but I wouldn't be overly hopeful either.
Right. So in terms of the pipeline of buyers, like where's the activity coming from? Because I mean, look, we know the problem if you don't have new supply coming onto the market, you know, on first-time buyers, they do like their new homes, but also they're being very well incentivized by the state to look towards new homes. But yet the catchment area, and I know I'm living in rural Galway, so I'm very familiar with the absolute there are so many vacant and derelict properties that the properties themselves, if they could become available, might be subject to the vacant and derelict homes grants. Is this an area of interest? Are you seeing many inquiries on this?
We did initially, and we did have a good few properties actually. And they, in fairness, they've definitely improved the buying, you know, the buying pool of people in that. Is it first time buyers? Not in our opinion, really, because the problem is with that grant, well, obviously you have a lot of criteria that you have to meet, but I suppose the big thing would be for me is that you have to spend it first. You have to, you know, they have to have that funding first, and then they get it back. Like people don't have that spare amount in the by the time they buy the actual property and then do up the property. So is it a first time buyer? Is it ticking that box? Probably not. But has it ticked the box of getting some of these derelicts off the market? Absolutely. And we'd have sold a lot of these in the past year in particular.
Yeah, you know, my co-host occasionally from daft.ie is Emmett Creighton, and he always has a focus on how we're generating new business. So I know if he were on the call today, he'd be talking about when you talk about your growth expectations for 2024, you know, looking at the marketplace as it is, accepting government policy as it is, particularly around the rental market. You know, what is your strategy for growth? How are you going to grow the business knowing the conditions are as they are for 2024 and there's not a huge amount that's likely to change?
Yeah, I'll take this. So basically, auctioneering is evolving all the time, and you know, it changes every week, and we have bi-weekly meetings, and then we have weekly meetings within office where we have to keep the staff up to date and ourselves up to date. And our key thing is the service that we provide. So there's always going to be properties out there, and it's about getting a certain percentage of those properties. So I suppose, yes, the supply is low when we've a smaller pool of properties to, I suppose, try and achieve from, but we like by word of mouth is our main word of business, and we just it's a thing that's absolutely in our office, from spoken about from one end of the morning to the end of the evening, is basically we have got to give the service, and if we don't give the service to that client, we're not going to get the repeat business. So it's a smaller pool of properties for sure, but we are getting definitely getting a stronger percentage of those properties due to the service that we provide. So that's our growth. That's all we can have control over. We don't have control over, unfortunately, over the wider demographics that we have been dealing with. So I suppose it's our duty to get as much as we possibly can within that pool, and that's actually growing. So it's a sign that the actual business is definitely growing, with the sense that if we're increasing our numbers of properties selling in a pool of properties that is decreasing, then you know we're certainly providing the service.
You know, I love when we do have the conversations that bring the business of a state agency back to it being a service business, because of course it is, and the technology around it, the means of you know, how people want to consume not just your information about your brand, but also about your company has really changed with the online portals and social media. And it's different from maybe the traditional things we used to use while your shop front window is still important and your signage is still very important. The word of mouth is a huge aspect, and I think that's increasingly so when you go into rural areas. So with that in mind, was that something that is that something you considered when you were thinking of the new partnership and the rebranding? Was that established brand, the word of mouth, were you happy that what you had could withstand a rebrand?
Yeah, again, I suppose it comes back to better together. Like, it's a wider pool of people, it's wider connections. But also, I'd have to say that I've dealt with property partners, as I said, since 2016. I find them a brilliant pool of people, and like we bounce off each other a lot, and they're a very good brand. And I suppose bringing that brand to the wider area of Galway as well is probably the main aspect as well of the partnership as well, just to try and grow it from in those areas. And like we are trying to hire licensed agents at the moment. We have advertisements out, so I suppose it's to deal with that expansion that we actually just had a natural progression there, a natural expansion. So it's to deal with that I needed the support and help to allow that to grow. I suppose it was growing, and we just needed to come together then to allow it to grow. Because look, I'm outside my professional life, I have 3 young kids and don't want to miss out on the younger years of their lives, and I needed a bit of support, and I knew that Claire would be that support that I would need, and we both recognised that we'd be better together.
Yeah, I think the better together is just such a good way to position it. And, I suppose in the spirit of growing while continue to offer that the service that is the hallmark of your brand.
Yeah,
how you deliver the service is really only one side of the equation. Consumers, whether they're buying or selling or renting or interacting with your services in any other way, that's the other side of the equation. And we know that consumer expectations have really changed over the last number of years. And coming from the background with I Am Sold and watching the digitization of the property transaction from 2009, how have consumers shifted, or how have you had to realign maybe your services from 2009 to 2024?
Yeah, we've I suppose integrated a few new IT software packages that have helped digitize ourselves. And I suppose there's different demographics then that you have to take into account as well. In terms of the consumers, some might be of an older clientele and not as willing to go online, etc. But we do embrace technology, and it certainly makes life a lot easier in other ways. But there'll always be a level of estate agency which needs to be personal. For instance, like the majority of our buyers are first-time buyers, and a lot of them are non-nationals as well, and they like to have the process explained in person. It's a massive choice or a massive decision to make, and then it'll be sometime down the line they may decide to sell, and hopefully that relationship that we build with them face to face will stand its test of time down the line when they do decide to sell.
Very good. So then in terms of education in the marketplace, because we know that first-time buyers today are so clued into understanding what's going on in their marketplace, understanding property prices, understanding trends. How important is social media for you to educate maybe your future pipeline of buyers and sellers?
Yeah, so we embrace the social media side of things, and I'd like to think we're relatively good on that standing. We were over the last few months doing what we called high five videos every Friday, whereby we'd provide some, I suppose, information and changes, the likes of the vacant homes grant or the new legislation on the property buyers bill that's coming into force hopefully in the future. So yeah, it's very important to keep connected, give information, and be, I suppose, seen, and it's brand awareness as well. So
before we finish up today, I'm always very conscious that a partnership, whether it's a work or personal or friendship or whatever it is, you know, generally partnerships tend to be people augmenting each other. And I hope this is an unfair question to ask, but I'm genuinely curious. So, Claire, what kind of skill set does Emma bring that you think kind of augments what you can do in the workplace?
So yeah, Emma is probably more progressive. Sometimes I feel I might pull the reins a bit to say she'd have big plans. Well, like we both have big plans, but yeah, she's certainly very very enthusiastic and driven. So yeah, I think we balance out quite well on one another. You know, our strengths and weaknesses. For instance, I suppose Emma be particularly skilled on the lettings and property management side, and I'd sway more towards the valuation side. So it all just works, and commercial as well. So
we do have this saying in at work that we come out. She comes out in a rash when we mention letting, and I come out in a rash when she mentions commercial. So
commercial valuation.
We're a good team.
So that sounds really good. So Emma, I have to give you the same opportunity. Like, what do you think Claire brings to the table? Maybe that you wouldn't, that mightn't have been your strong skill set.
Oh, she definitely brings more structure to the place, and she is very much about the service as well. So, but she definitely brings more structure and, you know, put in systems there that is making the place a lot more efficiently run. But she's a very good, like everybody that has a relationship with her, and I suppose that brings it to the other side of the thing. Why went into partnership? A lot of people do kind of request you know, can I speak to Emma initially? And once I got them into touch or connection with Claire, and they got to develop the relationship with Claire, they were ringing me back, can I speak with Claire, please? And they didn't want to speak with me anymore. So it was more that I had to get her as well, like that she's just as important to the business as I, and, you know, to try and get that across to people that, and when the name is above the door, it's a little bit easier. And I speak, you know, to speak to one of the directors as well, because a lot of people want to speak to the top owner. So yeah, very much so. She creates relationships. Like, I don't think ever in my years since 2009 that I hadn't actually stepped foot in every single property that I let or sold or had any relationship with until Claire came to the business and just dealt with the property from the get-go, and rightly so, because she was well able and more able, if I might add. And yeah, there's just certain parts of it of the business that I like, you know, commercial valuations come in and I'm like, oh my God, Claire, please, will you just do this? And it works well because she'd be much more efficient at it time-wise. And likely so, if something came in letting, she would just
gladly hand it over.
It sounds like you have a really good division of labor kind of naturally falling, where you're both kind of using your own skill sets. So I suppose final question, you know, for people who might be thinking of buying and selling across Mayo and Galway, you know, why should they now look towards Property Partners, Gill and Glynn?
It's you now, because you're now. And
well, look, genuinely, we've a very hands-on approach, and we deliver a very good service, to be fair. And we are seen and known to be getting prices well in excess of guide and in excess of market values. So I suppose obviously that's people's main aim, is to get the best possible price, but we have proven results that we do really deliver on that and portray the properties in the best light with really good, you know, professional photography. And it is put out there to a much larger pool of people, given, I suppose, our CRM and our systems that we have in place.
And it's just that, like, I suppose in today's market, as I said there about auctioneering changing all the time, it's changing all the time in the sense that people think now it's very easy to sell a property. And yeah, they're right in the way that it's very easy to sell a property. It's you know, it's our job to make sure that that person gets the most that they possibly can out of that investment. And that's so basically, and there's a lot of factors to it. And as we just touched on, you know, the social media aspect of it is huge now. And we'd have pool people said that they saw this property on our, you know, and had eventually, it drew them in. Whereas, you know, obviously you need your portals and all that as well. But we've gained an awful lot on our social media, and we really try and enhance that all the time. But it's just that auctioneering is evolving. It's not about just putting anymore. It's just not about putting the property, whack it up on the internet and put a sign out the side. You just have to provide that service and provide. I think as well, there's a lot of people out there that have been looking from are looking for property, and it's very sad to see that they're looking for a property for months, and they need a flexibility brought into their lives now, that they're be able to be shown the property at 6 o'clock on a Friday evening, or they want to see it on Saturday. We've been both known to go out on viewings on Sunday to avail. We don't like doing it now. I'm not opening it up for a book for Sunday, but we do. We provide a lot of flexibility, and I think people just need that now. They're just they might have we come into contact with people that have viewed up to 50 properties, and getting time off work and that for that manner is just not possible. So we do offer flexibility. We service the property very, very well, and when we get it on, it's about getting as much as we can, obviously for our client, but also providing the service to the people that have been, I suppose, in a lot of turmoil trying to find a property in the recent times.
Yeah. Look, I think that's a very compassionate approach, and one that's really needed, because this is, while it might be our everyday business, for other people, it is one of the top 3 most stressful events in their life. And, it's just so important to be cognizant of that. But look, I'm really excited for you both, and I'm genuinely delighted about the coming together and the new brand. I think it's really exciting, and I think it's a really exciting time in the property industry as well. And I think it's a really exciting time for the west of Ireland and for rural Ireland in general. So I'm excited to see what you do. Thank you so much for being so generous with your time today. Very best of luck. Congratulations, and the very best of luck going forward with the partnership. That was Emma Gill and Claire Glynn of Property Partners Gill and Glynn. My thanks to producer Katie Tallon and to the production team at Hear Me Roar Media. Also thanks to our show sponsor, daft.ie, Ireland's most visited property website. And finally, thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Property Roundup. In the meantime, please be sure to check out all of the other Irish and international real estate and construction shows here on iProperty Radio.